Hello, my name is Abigail and welcome back to Polyglot Progress. It is no secret to anyone who's been watching this channel for a while that I absolutely love this time of year, and it is absolutely not because of the weather outside. I love setting and reflecting on goals and kind of resolutions in general in both my language learning and my life in general. I feel like it has really changed my life and also just brought me a lot of joy overall, and I really love getting to share that with other people. But the main reason that I absolutely love this time of year is that everyone else kind of joins in. I'm able to see other people's reflections and through that realize things that happened in my own language learning as well. And I also get to read everyone else's language plans for the year, which is like kind of like living vicariously through them. Even if I have no interest in doing the things that they're doing, I don't have an interest in studying the languages they're studying or taking the approaches they take. It's just so exciting and motivating to watch other people set goals and then think about the goals that I've set for myself. So I'm really excited that today I am posting two videos. This first one that you are watching right now is going to be talking about 2020 overall for me language-wise, how I feel like my goals that I set at the start of this year went, some things that I learned, places I feel like I really progressed, places I feel like I didn't really progress, and some things that I want to keep in mind for next year. And then at the time that you're watching this, there is actually another video live where I'm going to be talking about my goals and resolutions and plans for my language learning in 2021, and especially the first 3 months of the year. So if you're interested in hearing what languages I'm focusing on next year, what my goals and resolutions for those languages are, and what I am doing after all of the things that I have learned from 2020, you can go ahead and watch that video afterwards. But for now, let's talk about the here and now and all of the things that happened and did not happen in 2020. 2020 was a weird year with a lot of ups and downs when it came to my language learning, and I guess that's not really surprising at all, given that that's kind of the best way to describe a lot of 2020 in general for all of us. And while a lot of that weird and up and downness of my language learning is tied to COVID, and we'll talk about all of the things that happened in my life that kind of made that the case, a lot of this also requires a little bit of backstory. I started university in 2016. At the time, I was actually in the middle of an Add 1 challenge, which I did finish out, but by the time I finished it, I was feeling pretty burnt out and stressed in general. I was in my first semester of university, I was doing quite a bit, and it was really hard to keep up with practicing a language at that level. And this began this very off and on relationship with language learning that you can see fully documented on Polyglot Progress, because I was making videos on here for the whole time I was in college. With the exception of 2017 and 2018 when I was doing the Romance Language Challenge and learning Spanish and Italian, my 4 years that I was at college, so up until spring of 2020, I was very much so taking a whole step back from language learning and then coming back and kind of refreshing myself on things and getting myself to a place where I wasn't rusty anymore and maybe improving slightly, and then taking a step back again. And then the end of my junior year began what I refer to usually as like a year-long hiatus from language learning. So from the spring of my junior year to the spring of my senior year, I really was not studying languages at all. I tried a little bit fall of 2019 to get back into it, and I really was feeling back into it. I would study from my Bulgarian textbook to relax and have fun at the end of the night. That kind of fun enjoyment from language learning was totally back. I wasn't feeling burnt out the way that I was in the spring of my junior year. But I also was dealing with a lot with my mental health over that course of the year, and by the time the spring of 2020 hit, I was way too busy to kind of do anything language-wise up until coronavirus hit, which I'll talk about in a second. So I was just fully away. And the reason that this really matters is that I set my 2020 language goals when I was not doing anything language-wise, and I think that the difference is really going to show between these goals and my 2021 goals, when currently I am spending a lot of time doing language stuff. And honestly, initially looking back on these goals, I was almost sort of embarrassed by them. I was kind of like, these are really bad goals. They're not measurable, most of them. They're vague. They're so removed, but I don't totally feel that way after sitting with it for a little while. I set these goals trying to be hopeful that I would be able to return to language learning, and I set these goals hoping to motivate and inspire myself to get them done and to get myself to a point where I was learning languages in a way that these would happen. And though maybe they didn't really end up happening like that, and I really feel like the better goals and plans that I set myself this year were the ones that I set myself over the summer, kind of that rotation that I set and the goals that I set then, I don't think that these goals hindered me in any way. I don't think that I can call them bad goals because they didn't hold me back. They tried to do what they were supposed to and inspired me to come back to language learning, and I just wasn't able to. And I don't think that there's any harm in me having set goals for myself that didn't happen because I wasn't ready to do them yet. What I wish I could kind of look back and tell myself now is I know that the new year is not the only time to have a fresh start and set new goals. I know that I can decide tomorrow is Tuesday and that is going to be my new fresh start to language learning. We're gonna start over, we're gonna set these goals, we're gonna set a routine, we're gonna build habits, we're gonna work on this. And I feel like I felt like the new year was coming and I should have had that energy and inspiration and motivation that I tend to have at the new year, and I didn't because I was depressed. And I think I was kind of trying to force myself to have that desired fresh start with my language learning and that desired comeback to this thing that I loved so much, and it just didn't really work out. The other thing is that these goals are very language level based. I think that's the first thing that I learned this year is other than for a language that I actually need to take a certification exam for, I am never setting myself level goals again. Because the thing is I don't learn languages to get to a certain level, and I don't learn languages to be a polyglot and have a certain number of languages that I can speak at a certain level or whatever. What I care about is if I can watch movies in German and talk to people in German and read books in German, etc. I hope I can do the things that an advanced level user of German can do at some point, but that's not going to be how I mark that I've done that. I feel like it makes sense to be like, my German's at an intermediate level, let's work on getting it to advanced, and all of that sort of thing, but at the same time, I don't think that's really how that works for me. I think the intermediate stage is a many years long process for me. I think no matter how much time I put in, a lot of that is just becoming comfortable with the language and having it really become a part of me, and time is a lot of that. Obviously, if I'm speaking them every single day, that'll speed up that kind of getting comfortable with it a little bit faster, but in general, I feel like I just gotta sit. I gotta enjoy these. And there's no rush because using the languages, like I said, is the goal, not having the higher level. And so while I'll be able to do more things and more different things with a higher level, I can still do things right now. So I just really need to sit back, enjoy the ride, enjoy having these languages as a part of my life, because that's what I want. I don't want to have a flashy high level or a flashy number of languages. I want to just have this large number of languages that I choose to study as a part of my life. That's why I study them. I think I've known for a while now that I am okay if people feel like I am doing the wrong thing or the least effective thing or whatever by studying multiple languages at the same time. I know that I enjoy doing it. I know that it actually feels like it helps me a bit. I know that it's something that works well for me. And so now this year, I think, is the time for me to begin embracing that the model of learning languages at a crazy fast speed, especially once you get to that advanced level, is maybe not for me. And honestly, I don't know if it's attainable or sustainable for anyone. It's human nature for it to be really desirable for us to hit that next goal point, or for us to be able to share with everyone else how we've accomplished this really amazing feat and now we are a perfect speaker and we did it so fast, we did it the fastest. But I have no interest in being a person that shares their very perfect high-level language skills online. I just want to share my language learning process, which I guess is a slow one. Much like the language levels things, I would say that most of my 2020 goals didn't really end up happening, but not because I didn't work to make them happen or I wasn't able to accomplish them. Instead, basically when I did come back to language learning, I just reassessed and decided that they weren't actually things that I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to start translating songs in German as a way to practice vocabulary, but when I went to go do that, I realized that I didn't need to translate translate them. I understood all of the songs that I tend to listen to in German just by reading the lyrics, which, I mean, is a great feeling when you go to look at a goal and it turns out you're a little bit beyond that level, but I just thought that it wouldn't really be that fun for me because I kind of knew all of the words already, and it wouldn't really add anything to my language learning, so that's why that one didn't happen. And then, as expected, a lot of these changed because my life changed due to the pandemic. So for one, I wanted to get my Spanish ready for the Polyglot conference. I wasn't totally sure I was going to be able to afford to go. It was looking more like I wouldn't be able to afford to go, but I still wanted to be ready if I could, and if not, then I would have at least got my Spanish to a pretty good place. And then obviously the conference moved entirely online. I wasn't able to attend live, and it also wasn't in Mexico, so there was less of a need for that specific goal. I still worked on my Spanish, but I wasn't necessarily working to get it ready for the conference, and I wasn't able to test it out at the conference. Similarly, I wanted to figure out how to use all of the languages that I study in a work setting, both for film sets in the future and also for the job that I was working at the time. And I lost my job very early on into the pandemic, so that one was kind of pushed out of the way. I wasn't really looking to learn vocabulary connected to my job that I had just lost. Talking about some things that went well though, I feel like 2020 was a great year for my language learning overall. Like I said, I didn't really start language learning again consistently until April, and then I took kind of the second half of April, beginning half of May off from that sort of thing. I guess I wasn't totally taking it off from languages because I was working on my French thesis project, which actually did accomplish my goal of translating something in French that I'd set at the beginning of the year. But I feel like I accomplished a lot this year in language learning. I really only had, once you add all of that up, 7 months of time spent learning languages, but I think I did so much. I wouldn't say that my language levels really increased all that much this year, but I spent a lot of time just kind of reviewing and refreshing and catching myself back up with languages, and now leaving the year, I feel very solid and steady and just right in the language level that I am at in each of the languages, which is not something I felt coming into the year. I don't feel like I was at some point an intermediate level in German, but I haven't really done anything in it in a while, so probably couldn't say all that much. I feel like I am an intermediate in German. And again, because I don't really care so much about the levels, I feel comfortable just using the languages again. So I am reading Percy Jackson in German, which is something that I have been kind of trying to do for a while, but never progressed very far in, and it's felt very daunting. But now I'm almost halfway through the book, and it's going quite well. And I know that as I continue reading the series and continue to study German, that is only going to get better and better. But I think even the place that I'm at right now is more than I thought that I was even really capable of doing with that book. And I just feel way more confident speaking German, using German, listening to German, etc. And then I'm taking Spanish lessons right now. I am definitely the weakest with my Spanish speaking still, but we're working on that a lot, and I feel like I'm in a much better place with that. Again, I don't feel rusty. I feel like I can read, speak, write in Spanish, at least at the level that I'm at currently. Italian, that rust also feels like it's gone, and even Bulgarian. I recorded a diary that went up last week, and even in that, I feel like I was able to say quite a bit. I made a lot of mistakes. It was quite hard to think of much to say. The whole video is like 3 minutes long, and it includes me reading journal entries that I'd written, but that's the most I've been able to do in Bulgarian since 2016 when I put the language down. I definitely don't feel overwhelmed by the prospect of coming back and picking up all these prospects. I don't feel like I'm only doing stuff in one language. I don't feel like I'm shaky or rusty in a language. I really feel like they are all involved in my life. I feel like I made way more progress than I have in many of the past years in just 7 months. It's really a bit wild for me to think that I haven't been doing this all of 2020, because I do feel like I did so much. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm very content with where I'm at in my language learning moving into 2021. I think this year was also great just for making me not feel so much regret for the time that I had to kind of take away from language learning in college, definitely there were times where I felt regret or guilt or any of those things because I was kind of putting down these projects and then coming back to them, and it felt like I was hindering my progress because I was stepping away for so long, and then I'd have to kind of catch back up, and then I was stepping away again, and it felt like I just wasn't achieving the things that I wanted to achieve in these languages because I just didn't have time to. And I feel like this year has really showed me that it didn't take that long for me to get back to the place that I was at in each of those languages and begin to progress forward. So I didn't really screw myself over all that much. And one of my goals this year was to find a sustainable routine for myself and use languages often, and I feel like these past 7 months have really accomplished that. I'm definitely building up a much better routine. Definitely what I thought would happen of me graduating and then coming back to language learning did happen, which I'm very happy with. I definitely for a while was starting to worry that maybe I would just continue to be so busy with life in general that wouldn't happen. But I don't know if I will ever be busy in the way that I was busy throughout college again. I was doing 2 degrees and 2 minors. My last semester took 30 credits and I took at least 21 every other semester pretty much. And I worked and I did Polyglot Progress and I tutored and I did all of these things. And so I think as much as I take on in my life when it comes to career and that sort of thing, I kind of can't match the level of stress and workload that I had in college, which is great. I'm just happy that now language learning can be a part of that busyness. I said earlier that a lot of 2019 into 2020 was dedicated to kind of working on my mental health and figuring out things about that, and I think that that definitely then continued into my language learning this year in an amazing way for me. I really learned a lot this year about where my perfectionism can kind of creep into my language learning and end up holding me back a bit, because I feel like if I can't get the perfect routine immediately, I should just do nothing, because somehow my brain decides that if I can't do at least a certain amount each day, it's better to do nothing until I can do the other things, even though obviously that doesn't work. I also figured out how to express the feelings I was feeling in regards to my imposter syndrome and all of that, and I posted a video in French finally after 4 years. As much as language learning can be an escape and something relaxing for me, it is a little bit difficult to get myself to do it when I am feeling super anxious or really depressed or things like that. But I think this year I figured out a lot of ways that I can do even kind of minimal activities but still manage to do language learning, still manage to do something that I enjoy and will end up helping me feel a little bit better on those days. And through that, I feel like I really refound my love for language learning again. I think the more that I learn languages, the more that I love learning languages, and so I think having that kind of step away made it so that I wasn't able to see all of those things that I loved about doing it. I was only able to see those kind of more stressful parts that come with it, and I'm glad that now I am in a place where I am feeling excited to learn languages, I'm feeling patient with the amount of time it will take me to progress in languages, and I am feeling good overall. And I also began to be involved in the language learning community again. Definitely not studying languages meant I also took a step back from being kind of online talking about languages, and I'm just reminded of how much I love everyone that posts videos about this kind of thing and talks about this kind of thing online, and how just motivational and inspirational everyone is here. And then I guess a good note to end on before I go talk about my goals for this year is that I feel like this year my focuses with language learning definitely shifted. Obviously, I talked about how all my goals kind of changed as the year went along, but also I feel like just what I want from my language learning changed a little bit. So previously, I definitely had most of my interest kind of lying in writing and then kind of listening or reading. That kind of varied at different times. I did want to be able to speak. I've never really had an interest in learning a language in a way where I wouldn't have been able to speak, but it definitely was never my top focus. And now this year, I feel like I have changed what I really want to be able to do the most in my languages. So definitely the top one is speaking, and then obviously listening, so then I can actually have a conversation. And then my other top priority is reading, followed by being able to watch movies and TV shows and that sort of thing. One of my majors was film production, and then one of my minors was literature, so I really like talking about books. I really like making films and talking about films. I'm really bad at watching them though. And then I also post videos on here where I am talking. And so those are the things that are really motivating me and inspiring me to continue to learn these other ways of communicating right now. I want to be able to enjoy things that I wouldn't be able to enjoy otherwise, and I want to be able to learn things that I wouldn't be able to learn otherwise through the news and through politics and that sort of thing. And I want to be able to talk about it. You're definitely going to see a lot of goals related to that in my 2021 plans, and also an emphasis on kind of learning about culture and places around the world as well, because I feel like that is an important element of being able to do that as well. And I feel like with this kind of very off and on language learning that I've had, it's been a lot more linguistically focused as opposed to learning about the culture that speaks the language as well. And so I'm just really excited now to move into 2021, into a year where I am coming in feeling solid in my language levels, and I'm coming in the middle of kind of studying my languages and being ready to continue the momentum I already have. And I know that I'll have the whole of 2021 to be like that, because as busy as I may get, I know that I won't be busy academically. And honestly, I feel like that makes a huge difference for me. As always, I would love to hear how your 2020 went, even if it was as simple as you studied languages. This was a hard year for all of us. So I think we should all look back and reflect, being a little bit more gentle to ourselves than we might be usually. I definitely don't think I did as much studying as I could, and in theory I was off of work for multiple months and could have just dedicated full days to language learning, but I didn't, and I definitely struggled to keep consistent momentum throughout the summer. But even so, I definitely feel good about my language learning, so I'd love to know what you feel good about and anything that you can learn and improve upon next year. I will see you next Wednesday. Until then, there will be a video linked down below about my 2021 plans if you want to go watch that. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, practice makes progress.